Hi, shalom, friends. This past Hanukkah, I got a very charming card. It was from a friend of ours. It had a picture of her husband, three lovely children, and her pet dog. And it was a very nice card. It said, "Happy Hanukkah from our family to yours." Of course, when I looked at the card, I enjoyed very much seeing the beautiful family that we know. And I was curious, is my reaction abnormal? Because I was offended by the picture of the dog. I just felt it's a bit odd. It says, "From our family to yours." Is a dog part of the family? Now, I looked up in the dictionary, and they seem to say a family is usually defined as a social unit consisting of one or more parents with children. That's the way it's usually defined. Or occasionally it says a group of people closely related by blood. And then it says, for example, parents, children, aunts, cousins, nieces, and so on. But it doesn't say anything about dogs. Now, my dear listener, am I really that abnormal for being offended by the association of a dog with the word family? Now, I'm not getting involved in the debate or the question, if there is one, whether or not it's appropriate or to have pets and how one should associate with the pets. I'm focusing on the concept of family. Let me tell you another thing that happened to me. I know a gentleman, he's in his 80s, and he has a son, and I met both of them. I know the gentleman rather well. I never met his son. I met him on the street. He was walking with his dog, and the father said, "This is my son." And after the son left with the dog, the father shared with me something. He says, my son is married, but chose not to have children. But he has two dogs, he loves them. And sometimes when he visits me with the dog, and he says to the dog, "Go over, kiss Grandpa." And this is what this gentleman told me. "My son thinks it's funny. I laugh, but it really bothers me." Well, if the family picture is parents, children, and a dog, is it so far to suggest that the dog, being part of the family, could look at a human as a grandparent, as an uncle, as a favorite aunt? I mean, is that how we would like the dogs to look at us? Or is that how we look at the dogs? Let me talk about this just a little bit. If you ever had the misfortune to deal with a human being who's acting in a certain way, sometimes you hear an expression, "Stop acting like an animal." What does that mean when you tell a person, "Stop acting like an animal"? The person still has all of the human characteristics. In fact, sometimes you get most upset that when a person is acting like an animal, he's verbally abusing you or playing mental games with you. You say, "Stop acting like an animal." You say, "Well, I'm not. What are you talking about? I'm using my humanity." If in a marriage relationship and in the bedroom, one of the spouses said, "You're like an animal," what is that person saying? There's nothing wrong with the biology. What they're saying is you're acting without consideration. You're acting without kindness. You're acting without tenderness. You're acting without love. What are you talking about? We did it. Yeah, we did it like an animal. And stop acting like an animal. You see a person eating. You say, "Stop eating like an animal." What are you talking about, an animal? An animal doesn't eat fancy foods that I'm eating. An animal doesn't eat necessarily with a fork and a knife. In what way am I eating like an animal? You're eating like an animal because essentially what we see in these actions is instinct. We see biology. We see physicality. We don't see the mind. And we don't see refinement. And we don't see spirituality. If, for example, a person uses the expression, I love my dog loves me. Now, this is an ongoing concept. How do you define love? But for a moment, if a person says, my dog loves me, what has he said, actually? What is he really saying? Has he made the dog human? Or has he made himself an animal? Well, look at the dog. The dog is certainly not human. No matter how much this dog shows affection and wags his tail, it's not human. But it does love you. At least you think so. At least you define it as love. So what does that mean? That means essentially you started to think like a dog. So if you were a dog, this would be a way that you would feel wonderful. That this creature, this four-legged creature, actually has affection for you. But you haven't made a dog human. You've degraded yourself. Can you love a dog is irrelevant to the bigger picture of, is love a human characteristic? Or at times, can a person who's a human become an animal and express love as an animal? On a parallel path. One of the things that many of us in the Western affluent society has to deal with things, things, or objects. How many things do we need? How many things do we want? How many objects do we acquire? Well, when you think about things and objects, it's very clear that they're nothing more than inanimate. And therefore, the answer would be as much as you need, occasionally, as much that they will offer comfort. But what happens if you start looking at objects as things that have spirituality in them? Or to put it a little bit differently, as miniature life forms. So you'll stand in front of a painting, you say, this painting is talking to me. It's affecting me. Say, really? In what manner? He said, well, it's very profound. When I just look at this beautiful painting, I just feel relaxed. You mean like talking it over with a good friend? Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. That's exactly how I feel. You know something? I acquire friends. I would love to have a friend. I need this object. The Disney films introduced a wonderful imagination, but rather absurd. I'll start with the absurdity. Any cook knows that if you have a rat running around in your kitchen, you have a very unhealthy kitchen. And I think it's almost universal that rats in a house and mice in a house is usually a sign of a ill-kept house. And to use modern parlance, it freaks out people that in their cupboard where there's Cheerios, there's a mouse. And comes Disney, they're brilliant. And they make a movie about a rat that's in the kitchen and it advises the cook how to cook. And it's a charming movie. It's funny. But is it healthy to think in those terms? That a rat has feelings, a rat belongs in a kitchen, a rat can advise the cook on what makes a very, very healthy, nutritious, and tasty food. We have 101 Dalmatians. We have dogs that are talking with each other, that love each other, that have a system of law and order, of feelings. We have animals that are alive and human. You say, okay, maybe they are. But how do you explain cars? How do you explain a movie where cars are male and female, have feelings of aggression and competition, get broken-hearted when they don't win? How would you explain the Toy Story? That there are toys that actually have complete personalities. Now, I don't truly believe that a child that watches a Disney movie of toys is going to believe that toys are alive. But what I do suspect is that movie after movie and can create a type of a message that we should be attached to objects, that we could have affection, human affection for objects and things. And in the long run, I don't think that's healthy. So if someone were to tell you, I come from a wonderful family, would you inquire what dog they have? If a person says, I take care of my family, would you want to know how many cats they have? Again, the issue is not whether a pet is allowed, permissible, or good. The issue is, are they human? And if animals are human-like, why are objects and possessions not human-like? So we have people that are married to their job. Can you marry a job? But the language becomes corrupted. What does it mean to be married? And if you know what it means to be married, you certainly cannot be married to a job. I could go on and on. This is really for you to think about. Let me share with you one Hasidic insight. Emotions. Animals have emotions. They are emotional creatures. One cannot deny the affection, the hurt, sometimes you could see in an animal's eye. There's no question about that. They greet you with affection. There's no question that they have emotions. But what is the difference between an animal emotion and a human emotion? And the answer is rather stark. Human emotions are created, sustained, and nourished through the mind. Animal emotions are nourished through instinct. So the hand that feeds the dog, the one that combs the fur, gets a response from this creature of perhaps acknowledgement. And indeed, the prophet said it thousands of years ago, even the ox knows its owner because it feeds from the crib. Believe me, if you were to sell an ox or a cow, or for that matter, transfer your dog to a wonderful new home, it would adopt its new family. Because after all, it's being fed, it's being exercised, it's being catered to. Mommy, I don't like my friend anymore. And why don't you like your friend anymore? Because we had a fight. Okay, so work it out. So think about it. That's asking a person to put the mind before the emotion. That's asking a person to share where the mind tells the heart, this is the right way I should be feeling. This is the right way I should be expressing my emotion. It's a constant struggle for the human body to act truly human in the image of God. We are today fighting images and streams of thought that are doing everything possible to take a divine image and form it in the form, in my opinion, of an animal. I never like to leave you hanging or with a negative taste. So let me close how today's messages can be seen not only as something positive, but literally messianic. You see, deep down, there is a truth, and that is everything that exists has a life source, coming from the source of life. There's a charming midrash that tells us that it will come a time that a person will be able to go to a fruit tree and pluck an pluck an apple. But if it were to be Shabbos, you know what the fruit tree would say? Stop, it's Shabbos, you're not supposed to take me. We have a talking tree. We have other charming midrashim and deep mystical teachings that tell us that if the ground would be able to talk to you, it would say, use me, study Torah, walk on me, you're worthy of being on top of me. So yes, when we see cars that talk and planes that interact with one another and the animal world having a world of its own, in truth, there is something to that. But the message is that all of objects are telling us and reminding us to be human. That's the message. Shalom.